You all know the very famous jñānamudrā quite well. You have seen it and done it too, maybe for 5+ decades by now. You may even know the not so famous dhyānamudrā as well. Balancing the balancer, dhyānamudrā, thumbing the thumb, beyond likes and dislikes. Once again, done by the very famous and of course the not so famous too. How about bhaktimudrā? Yes, you heard it right. Bhaktimudrā. You might ask, what's that? Bhaktimudrā? I wouldn't blame you because it's never ever documented. No worries. Bhaktimudrā, come learn with me. What else is tyāgarājā for? ராஜா கைய வச்சா அது ராங்கா போனதில்லை, நான் தாஜா பண்ணி வைத்தா வண்டி பேஜார் பண்ணதில்லை. அது பெருசு என்றாலும் சிறுசு என்றாலும் சொகுசு எவலதா ரம் பம் 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 பம். ராஜா கைய வச்சா प्राणापानव्यानो दानं समान नागा-garuḍa कृकरदेवदत्त पराकाशचित्र इति 12 महा उपपरप्राणवायवः.
Shravana Shanivara to Shravana Sōmavārā. Gap juxtaposition on this wonderful Sunday, the beautiful sun on my costume. Warm greetings to you, and what better way to start this episode than with Shravana Sōmavārā hero Shiva's mantra of Shravana Shanivara hero Rama from the Mahabharata, more particularly the Vishnu Sahasranama. Shri Rama Ramiti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanani. Ram 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 Lakshmana Janaki Jai Bolo Hanuman Ki. I am Atma Brahmana Kaya Mano Buddhi Jai Bolo Mahāprāṇa Ki. Prāṇāpāna vyāno dāna samana sapancha mahāprāṇa. 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 Input, output, distribute, interact, assimilate. Input, output, distribute, interact, assimilate. Nāga-garuḍa Dhananjaya Sapancha Upaprāṇah. Blink, sneeze, yawn, and twitch. Nāga-garuḍa Dhananjaya Sapancha Upaprāṇah. Blink, sneeze, yawn, and twitch. Parakasha Chitra Sameta iti dvādasha prāṇavāyavaha. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Parakasha Chitra Sameta iti dvādasha prāṇavāyavaha. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Prāṇā-pāṇa vyāno dhāna samānasa pancha mahāprāṇa. Input, output, distribute, interact, assimilate. Prāṇā-pāṇa vyāno dhāna samānasa pancha mahāprāṇa. Input, output, distribute, interact, assimilate. Nāga-garuḍa Devadatta Dhananjaya Sapancha Upaprāṇam. Blink, sneeze, yawn, and twitch. Parakasha Chitra Sameta iti dvādasha prāṇavāyava. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Parakasha Chitra Sameta iti dvādasha prāṇavāyava. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Some of you at least know the sources of what I just sang. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize is the starting line of a beautiful, simple bhajan by Swami Shivananda of the Divine Life Society, the Puja Parameshti Guru of my maternal grandfather, Swami Sharanabhavananda, Rishikesh, Pattamada, Shivananda Nagar in particular, and Prāṇā-pāṇa vyāno samana nāga-garuḍa Devadatta Dhananjaya iti dasha vāyavaha is from the Bhavanopanishad, as many of you might not know. It's in fact the second last sentence of the third mantra, which illustrates not only the five pranas which most people know about, namely prana, apana, vyana, udhana, samana, which is prana, the input, apana, the output, vyana, the circulation, udhana, the elevation, lightening up, enlightening if you want, which is essentially the five sensors and the five actuators. Not all five of the actuators, but only two, the hands and the legs, the others being controlled by the apana, and then the samana, or the digestion in between the input and the output, between the prana and the apana. So if you want to look at it from a chakra point of view, it would start from the feet, all the seven lower chakras below the Mūladhara, all the way from all those seven, along with the Swadhisthana and the Manipura. That entire region would be what we call as the apana vayu. And then from the navel upwards to the heart, including the distance between the Manipura chakra and the Anahata chakra, this would be the samana vayu. And from the heart to the throat would be the pranavayu, that is Anahata to Vishuddhi, and from Vishuddhi to Agnya would be the udhana vayu, and all around every cell of the body and pervading a little out of it as well would be the jnana-vayu. So these would be the five pancha mahaprana. Then there are the five upapranas. Upa means nearby, like in Upanishad, we say go sit near your guru and learn from him, Upanishad. And then we would have another example would be upayoga. In Kannada, upayoga means usefulness or help, utility. unity, and yoga is union from yuj, the seed word. This is somewhat, and union is what true help or true utility would be. Right? This is not only in the Bhavana Upanishad, but also in the Shiva Samhita in a different form. Very interestingly, if you look at these upapranas, Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, Dhananjaya, the first three, Naga, Kurma, Krikara, are all reptilian entities, reptiles, referring to our evolutionary origins, because of which we still have a core in the brain which is reptilian and which typically behaves like the reptiles, namely the snake, tortoise, and the gecko or the large lizard. And these actually refer to, very interestingly, certain protective measures which we tend to ignore, and in today's social conditions even try to control ourselves. But actually, these are reflex actions of the body which are very important to be allowed to be as they are. The first of them is, of course, naga. When we eat food which is not suitable for us, we tend to, or overeat for that matter, we tend to belch or burp, or we eat too much of dry solid food without any liquid in it or without any juicy foods in it, then we tend to have hiccups. So all of these are essentially one of the upaprana, namely the naga prāṇā, which is a counterpart of the samana. As far as counterparts are concerned, it's not unanimous. Many controversial interpretations are there. What I am saying is entirely from my own inner readings through my sadhana. What I observe is that the naga upaprana is a counterpart of the samana, the digestive mahaprana, one of the pancha mahapranas, which is kind of clear as well, that essentially it is digestion or assimilation. When it doesn't happen properly, it tends to go out in an opposite direction from the direction which it is normally supposed to go to, which is essentially belching, burping, hiccup, or even vomiting for that matter, throwing up when you've eaten food which is kind of toxic, poisonous, food poisoning. The second is, interestingly, the eyes, the blinking, or even the pupil dilation that happens. That's essentially when you go into a very bright place, you tend to constrict your pupils. And when you go to a dark place, you tend to open up your eyes bright and wide. When something comes near our eyes, our eyelids immediately, as a reflex action, try to close, blink essentially. This is what we call as the kurma upaprana, and it's the counterpart, according to me, of udhana, because udhana is what controls all these senses, including the eyesight, as well as the two motor organs of the hands and the legs. Then the third reptile is gecko or lizard, krikala or krikara, sometimes it is referred to as. What we do before somebody says, God bless you, sneeze or cough, expelling from the respiratory system something which has gone in, which is not supposed to get into the lungs. It's a counterpart, according to me, in my inner realizations, of the apana mahaprana. Then we have, as the fourth, very interesting one, tamas, but given a beautiful name, devadatta. Deva means our rajasic gunas, and datta means that which arises out of it. When we are too active, do a lot of action over a long period of time without taking rest, then our own rajoguna deva gives datta. What does it give? Gives a which is contagious too, and everybody else will yawn, and eventually we tend to take rest if we listen to our body, which is something we have forgotten to do. We tend to ignore our bodies, and whatever it tries to tell us, we tend to override and continue doing what we were doing, which is not a wise thing to do, but unfortunately that's what we do in today's lifestyle. And finally, we have Dhananjaya, or victory over the desire for wealth. As you know, Krishna keeps calling Arjuna Dhananjaya, amongst many other names like Partha, Arjuna, etc. in the Bhagavad Gita. So Dhananjaya is essentially the twitching action, also the opening and closing of the heart walls. In fact, you would see certain dead bodies undergoing a little bit of twitches here and there, even after they have been medically declared dead, because Dhananjaya, which is the counterpart of the vāna, many people say Vyana is the last to leave, but actually it is the upaprana of Vayu, which is Dhananjaya, which is what leaves almost 10 to 11 days later, which is why we perform obsequies on the 10th or 11th 11th day, which is essentially a celebratory process because those first 10 days we tend to grieve for the loss of a dear one, but eventually we realize that they have become one with the universal consciousness, and we celebrate that with festivity on the 11th day, sometimes the 14th day. There are many ways in which we can increase these pranas, and for that we need to understand the basics of hasta mudra, because that's the simplest, easiest, free way to do it. Absolutely no cost except probably a little bit of your time. For you to understand this, you should recognize that we are made out of the 5 elements: solid, liquid, energy, gas, and space-time field, what we call as Prithvi, Jala or Apa, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. If you want to control any of these 4, you usually use the fire element to do that. There are 3 ways to modify any of these 4, because these 4 are the ones which together the solid and liquid form the kapha, together the air and space, aerospace, forms vata, and this is pitta. So with pitta, we can control both the kapha as well as the vata. Most people tend to use these mudras either with art forms like Bharatanatyam or with healing techniques. Become very, very popular nowadays. So many books, research papers and journals, and of course YouTube videos and things like that. Everybody's become an expert on healing with mudras. But this can be used in the yoga sadhana as well, for bhakti or for jnana or Raja Yoga. All these things can be done. Today I'll focus on bhakti because that's the theme of what VasanthiMā is going to sing for us. But there are, as I said, 3 ways to control. One is to increase, the other is to decrease, third is neither increase nor decrease, but what is out of balance, try to bring it back into balance. In other words, it's kind of turbulent, increasing, decreasing, quite rapidly changing. You want to kind of stabilize it, that is balancing. So how do you do balancing? Is by bringing the tip of the thumb in contact with the tip of whatever element you would like to balance. If you want to balance the water element, you bring the fire in contact with water, and the tips should touch. Many people do it this way. That's not proper. They do it this way. It's not proper. The nails are not what is important. The hands, remember, have nerve endings, and especially at the tip, they are rich with those nerve endings. I'm not talking about the physical nerves, but the subtle nerves or the nadis, which are 72,000 in number. And 70% of the brain's surface area is typically used to control the sensors on the hand and the actuators on the hand. So that's the significance of this, that anything done here has a repercussion not only in the most of the brain, but through the brain to every other part of the body: physical body, emotional body, intellectual body, and the energetic body as well. Because the earth element is connected with the physical body, the water element is connected with the emotional body, the fire element is connected with the intellectual body, the air element is connected with the energetic body, and the space element with the bliss body, what we call as the annamaya kosha or the food sheath, the pranamaya kosha or the energetic sheath. The vital life energy is what we're talking about as energy here, which of course finds its manifestation in the physical forms of energy, but that's a gross representation. But subtly, it is in the form of a vital life force or energy. So we finished annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, the emotional body, the intellectual body, which is nothing but jnānamaya kosha, and finally the bliss body or ānandamaya kosha. Now, if you want to balance any of these elements, you bring the tips in touch. This is to balance the water element called Varuna Mudra. This is to balance the earth element called the Prithvi Mudra. This is to balance the space-time element called the Akasha Mudra. And this is to balance the air element called jñānamudrā. Very popular for meditations. We typically use it this way, and as chin mudra as well. And when we cover these 3 fingers, it becomes the chinmaya mudra. The chin mudra usually helps in healing the lower parts of the body, the chinmaya mudra in the middle parts of the body, the adi mudra helps in the head portion, and the merudanda helps in the back. This is the upper back, the middle back, and the lower back. So this is how the merudanda works. There are other versions of the merudanda as well. But coming back, this touching each other is to balance that particular element. And we can do it in pairs of 3 or 4 as well, as we shall see shortly. But before that, balance is not the only thing that the fire element can do. It it can also increase or fire up these things. If my water element is very low, what do? I put my thumb below my little finger, and that means the water element will get fired up. If I put it below the earth element, if I have low earth element, it will get fired up, increase. I can increase similarly the akasha element and the vayu element as well, the space and air. Now, if I want to decrease them, what do? I bring those element fingers to the bottom of the thumb. So if I bring the little finger at the bottom of my thumb and cover it, of course, with the thumb to hold it there in place. None of these are done forcibly, just gently. Even the touch is kind of gentle. You feel the pulse, but just about it. Okay. And so this will decrease my water element. This will decrease my earth element. This will decrease my space element. This will decrease my air element. Very popular mudra called the Vayu mudra, which is essentially to reduce the air element within us if we are having a lot of gastric trouble, etc. My focus here is not on physical health or emotional health for that matter. My focus more on the spiritual sadhana, but I'm just giving the collateral benefits of these as well. Now we come to these pranas. How do we increase the pranas? You see that if I balance my kapha, I can increase my prana or my input energy. That's essentially what is happening when I do this mudra. This is called the prana mudra. Then if I want to increase my output or balance my output rather, I would go to these two, which is essentially the grossest, namely the earth or solid, and the subtlest, namely this field, which is the space-time field, akasha. Those two I want to balance with each other. Then the outputs will be regulated, will be balanced, stabilized. So this is called the apana mudra. This is what is really helpful in enhancing your bhakti. And even the so-called intelligent people or people who think of themselves as intellectuals, even they, if they do this for a while, they will become bhaktas as well. So bhakti is not just for the stupid people. You will see that in fact it's the highest intelligence. Most people, yes, who claim to be bhaktas are indeed stupid, and that's why many intelligent or intellectual people shy away from bhakti or devotion. But when they go deeper and deeper into the intellectual pursuits and eventually intelligence, they will recognize that they reach bhakti. So it's a long route, but they eventually reach there. And by doing this, they can reach much faster. Also called as the mriga mudra, because it's like the deer. And then you have a better or more powerful one if you bring the vayu down by touching the base of the thumb. So this is what becomes the apana vayu mudra. You're combining an apana mudra with the vayu mudra, and both done together becomes the apana vayu mudra, the ultimate for bhakti. You will not find this, trust me, whatever you search on the internet or in books, you will not find this, because this is a top secret that I'm revealing to you, purely based on my own experience. I, who have been involved for most of my life with aerospace engineering at the highest level, mostly in intellectual pursuits, still admit or confess to being a bhakta all the time. Bhakta in the sense that my body, mind and intellect are devoted to ourself, not to some god somewhere in Vaikuntha or Kailasha or heaven or whatever. We don't even know if all those places and those gods exist. But what we know is our life exists. So prana is the experiential validation, verification and proof of the existence of something beyond the physical body, emotional body and the intellectual body. And if you want to be devoted to it, to surrender to ourselves, practice this often. You will see the beauty of how quickly, easily and efficiently you can perform tasks which otherwise you would have taken days or years to do. Just happens just like that. All because you now have access to who you really are, ourself, the life, the vital force, the vital energy. Because what are you doing? You're just letting the water element free, the emotions free. And emotions are the way through which bhakti is expressed. And bhakti, unfortunately, most bhaktas think of it as a transaction, as a way to bribe God, thinking God is so stupid that you give him a very small amount or just a leaf or a flower, and you think he will give you wealth, he will give you a great relationship, he will give you good education, he'll give you a great career, he'll solve all your legal problems, solve all your neighbor fights. Stupid, isn't it? Whatever happens based on our karma, based on our actions, thoughts, and words in the past, both in this life and in the previous lives, accumulated and parts of it getting fructified according to the laws of nature. But then to stupidly think that we can get all of this done easily by bribing God through a prayer. No, prayer is something which is alien to our Indian culture. We never prayed until about 1,000 years back, when unfortunately so many other religions invaded us. We didn't even in fact have a religion. Ours was a way of life, a dharma, sanatana dharma, an eternal dharma. And being eternal, of course, it survives 1,000 years of harassment, which is a politically correct word that I'm using, for the obnoxious things that were done to us, our ancestors. The only reason why we survive is the fact that this is an internalization. So no distraction outside can actually prevent this internal realization generation after generation. We have so many Jivan Muktas. Very soon we will see how this particular song is related to what I am saying over here. You might think it is far-fetched, but it's important because most intelligent people who watch these videos on our channel think that bhakti is just for those who are not very smart. Well, if you think I'm smart, take it from me that I'm a bhakta, and I confess to that. I'm guilty of that, but not to some god somewhere else, as I already said, but to ourself, which is not even an English word. Ourselves is the English word, but I'm purposely using a wrong word, ourself, because it might be wrong grammatically, but it is the correct one spiritually. There is only a singular self of you, me, of all living beings, even the so-called non-living things. All of them have prana in some way or the other. Then Swami Shivananda says, serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. He's actually talking about the Raja Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, and the Jnana Yoga in simplified English words. To the Macaulay Putras of those days, in the early 20th century, pre-independence especially, and quite a few decades after that as well, when most people were not going to their source, the Vedas, or even more easier accessible source prior to the Vedas, that is our own internal ourself. When that access was lost, people like Swami Shivananda had to come and give simple words like serve, by which essentially what their meaning is Raja Yoga. They had to tell love, by which they mean the Sankhya Yoga, integral yoga. They had to tell give, by which they mean the Karma Yoga. They had to tell purify your emotions, essentially, which is nothing but Bhakti Yoga. And they had to tell meditate, which is essentially going internalizing yourself, dropping off all of your thoughts. It's essentially Jnana Yoga, to realize who you really are. This is pure science, which is why we call it Vijñānamaya Kosha. The science is all about observations and measurement in an unbiased, unprejudiced way. Unfortunately, most of Western science, what's happening, is highly prejudiced and highly biased. They claim to be based on measurements, based on observations, but there's hardly any attention, awareness in the truest sense of it, without the subject influencing the truth. When you do that, the true science of spirituality comes up to the fore. There are ways in which we can increase the upapranas as well. For example, blink-free gazing of a flame for approximately 10 minutes, called as Trataka, helps master the 5 upapranas. When combined with proactive listening, that is Shravana, and focus, which is Ekagrata, Trataka is a potent prerequisite to dhyana. Because dhyana, the true meditation, is deconcentration, exactly opposite of concentration. But you use concentration as a prerequisite, Ekagrata, to get there. But Ekagrata is not dhyana, is not meditation. Concentration, meditation, two opposite things. But concentration over a period of time helps you eventually to get into meditation, because concentration reduces from an innumerable number of thought waves to just a single one, and then eventually you get rid of that as well. Dhyana. In addition, most people think there are 5 pranas only. At least a few others will know that these 5 upapranas are there. And in fact, this is very beautiful. Of course, we are supposed to hold the other fingers straight without any stress, but just to see how close these are, I want to show you that we are moving from the grossest to the subtlest and back. We start with prana, the grossest. Even though I'm supposed to hold the other fingers straight just for the purpose of illustration, I will show you how close and easy it is to remember. And just keep all of them together. I'm not touching the ones which are supposed to be kept straight with the thumb. So now you see what's happening. I'm touching the little and ring finger. That is prana. The next subtler is apana. What do? I just move my thumb one step from prana to apana. In reality, when you do it, you just pull this up. We came from prana to apana. The next thing we do is go from one step from that towards the subtle. Get to the subtlest point, which is jnana. Of course, you hold these up now. Prana, apana, jnana. Then it's a return journey from the subtlest back to not the grossest, but a little gross. So what you do? You keep these two as it is. You bring the next one together and it becomes udana, the buoyancy, making you feel light and capable of doing far more work than you usually do. Udana, which is essentially at the facial level, above the vishuddhi to the ajna, that flow of prana there. Then to the next one, you bring the little finger as well. Every one of them together. Samyama or samana prana. Samyama is essentially dissolving yourself, and that can happen only through a balance of all the pranas. If any one of them is unbalanced, it's impossible to get into samyama. So that's why it's samana. This is how we offer naivedya too during puja. We say Om Pranaya Swaha, Om Apanaya Swaha, Om Vyanaya Swaha, Om Udanaya Swaha, Om Samanaya Swaha. So all of the life forces are what should be truly offered, the Pancha-mahāvayus. We also talked about the Pancha-upavayus, 3 of which are reptiles, as I said. One is burping, belching or hiccups. Second is blinking or the pupil dilation. The third is sneezing or coughing. The fourth is yawning. As soon as you yawn, you better take rest. You'll be much more efficient after the rest to work much more quickly rather than just extending even after yawn, continuing to work overnight especially. The final one, of course, is the twitching. That's an external expression, but essentially the ability to go beyond the material, which is why we say dhananjaya, victory over the desire of wealth. In addition to these 10, the Pancha Mahapranas and the Pancha Upapranas, 2 supramental impulses. That is, we have 2 more, which are essentially our connectivity to our Anandamaya Kosha, to download from it and to upload to it. Because the Anandamaya Kosha is common for all of us. At these levels, we are all physically different from each other. A little bit of overlaps at the emotional, intellectual, and energetic levels, but at this level, we are one and the same. But the universal intelligence, we can download from the universal intelligence what we call as the Akasha Prana, which is a Para-Prana-Vayu, and we can also upload to it, contribute to it. These guys, BMI, can contribute to it. That is called Chitra. Downloading from the Anandamaya Kosha's universal intelligence is called Akasha Paraprana-Vayu, the meta-psychic mentation, and uploading to it is called the Chitra Paraprana-Vayu, the meta-neural mentation. They are uploading to the Anandamaya Kosha's universal intelligence. And some of these Western ways of gestures are very interesting. When we want to pee, especially school children, when they want to tell their teachers that they want to go to the urinals, male or female, they typically tell this. And that's the water element. Knowingly or unknowingly, they're doing this. And some arrogant fellows like Greg Chappell, when they want to humiliate one of the greatest captains, cricketers, leaders that we have had, Saurav Ganguly, he shows the middle finger. But actually, that is such a very powerful thing, because what are you doing? You're bringing the other 3 close to the thumb, which essentially means that you're allowing for the kapha and the vata vayu to come down. Only the akasha, the space-time field, is let to be free by itself. That is not, my dear friends, up yours. It actually is the subtlest that you can become. And that was such a powerful thing. So it's very interesting. In different cultures, it's taken on different roles, but there is a much more scientific basis to it, which we can actually subjectively experience rather than because of habit or culture or just copycat looking at others and doing. And then we want to go and check. We typically show this, which is essentially you get rid of the solids as well as the liquids, right? When you are excreting. Anyway, those things apart. As I said, my focus here is not on the health benefits of it, which are collateral. Many, a lot of scientific papers also on those these days, thousands of them in fact. So I'm not going to that. My utility here is to tell you from my own experience how some of these mudras also can be used for accelerating our spirituality, amplifying, augmenting it. So, for example, these para-prāṇa vayus, akasha and chitra, the metapsychic meditation and the metaneural meditation, together make up the dozen subtle energy flows, dvadasha vayus, best experienced rather than just discussed. How? Well, through keen observation, accelerated, amplified, augmented by the apt mudrās, as we already saw. This combination, or the order in which I said prāṇā, pāṇa, dhyāno, dāna, samāna, occurs not only in the Bhavanopanishad and Shiva Samhita, but also in the Sri Hariharaputra Sahasranama Abhisheka Mantra. We started this discourse with the Vishnu Sahasranama, Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tapulyam Ramanama Varanane, which Shiva tells to Parvati that just the word Rama, the name, is sufficient or equal in power to the 1,000 names of Vishnu. And that's what we will see in tyāgarājā's song also when VasanthiMā delivers that. And in the 1,008 names of Ayyappa was nothing but a projection from our Manipura chakra of Dharma Shastra, our ability to be duty conscious. One of the 1,008 names, before we talk about Ayyappa and Dharma Shastra and things like that, is about prāṇā, pāṇa, vyāno, dāna, samāna. Me shuddhyantam jyotiraham viraja vipātma bhūyāsagam svaha. That's in fact the opening line of the Ayyappa Sahasranama, and typically done during the Abhishekam ablutions that we offer to that projection. When we do the Prana Pratishtha from our Manipura chakra, we essentially talk about these pranas as well, all the 5 prana, Pancha-mahāprāṇas.
Prāṇā, pāṇa, vyāno, dāna, samāna, nāga-garuḍa, Jaya Krikara Deva Dhatta Parakasha Chitra Iti Dvadasha Maha Upapara Prāṇa Bhayavaha.
Namaskaram and Jai Hind, folks. Welcome to the 11th and final episode of VasanthiMā's rendition of éndarō mahānubhāvulu, episode number 124, codenamed E124, the 10th and the final charanam. We have been with her all along and witnessed this awe-inspiring 210-day journey throughout 2023. Yes, the first of this 11-episode series aired on January the 9th as her channel's very first episode for the year 2023, a New Year gift. Now, let's get straight onto the latest but never the last word. For knowingly or unknowingly, the so-called conclusions are always arrogant anathema of the ignorant copycats. Somebody else is writing a conclusion, giving a conclusion, so I will also do it. Unaware of the infinite potency and outreach of wisdom. Whatever you do, however well you do, there can always be something beyond that. Either you do it yourself or somebody else will do it. Either your peers or your juniors or somebody in the future even after your death. Generation after generation. Never ending. Never ever concluding. Yet saving the best dessert for the seeming culmination. Well, what's on our dessert menu today? Already told you. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. According to tyāgarājā, he puts it in a different fashion. He starts with love. He says true love, true chant, true devotion, true offering, and true servitude. So love, chant, devote, offer, and serve are not only aligned with the 5 exhortations in Swami Shivananda's catchy bhajan, which I of course just attempted to sing upfront, but they are also the 5 invaluably precious gems, efficiently jam-packed even into this teeny-weeny little stanza of tyāgarājā that's construed by many Carnatic connoisseurs as the one and only real charanam of éndarō mahānubhāvulu. With the previous 9 stanzas considered as a training program, essentially swara exercises, preparing us for this grand finale, which VasanthiMā is all set to expound for us shortly. While the USP of our channel, the advaitik insights, would follow VasanthiMā's feature presentation as usual, here's a brief preview of what is in store so that you focus on these 5 significant terms or phrases even, sentences sometimes, during VasanthiMā's exposition. What are they? Prema, Nama, Bhakti, Tyaga, and Das. What are the exact words he uses there? Prema muppirikonu vela, Namamu talachevaru, Rama Bhaktudaina, Tyāgarājā nutuni, nija-dāsulaina vārendaru. Just focus. It's a very short stanza that VasanthiMā is going to sing. Very easy for you to focus on these five. The first one, as I said, is prema or love. And love is what we ourselves is. And I'm again making a grammatical mistake purposely, my dear friends. Love is what we are. But we are not many. We are singular. And so I cannot say we are, but we is. And then I have to not talk about the BMIs. If I talk about the BMIs, yes, I have to say are, but I'm talking about ourselves. And therefore, love is what we ourselves is and not what we do. Many people think of love primarily as a verb. I love you, you love me. So it's a way of expressing, making love, as they say, and most of it is sexual in nature. But love can be in various other forms, as we already know. But even that, whether it is between parents and children, or between children and parents, or between any two human beings, or between pets and human beings, the pet loves the owner and the owner loves the pet. That is not the true love that we are talking about. True love is what you are. True love is what I am. True love is what our pet is. So love is what we ourselves is. Whether it's living being or non-living being, non-living thing, but I call it being nonetheless. It has less propensity to be compared to a human being. But we call them living beings. We don't call them living things. Right? Every one of them is a being. And as we go deeper into our spiritual sadhana, we see that so-called non-living things are also beings in some sense. Their prana levels, how much they access from the universal prana, is very less. We access a whole lot of prana. And still, because it's an infinite reservoir, how much ever we take, it remains infinite and still accessible as much as they want for everybody else's BMIs. First one is prema. Love is what we ourselves is and not what we do. Naturally, it engulfs us right here and right now. In triangulation, it engulfs us. Gulf, like the Gulf of Mannar or the Gulf area in the Middle East. Muppirikonu, prema muppirikonu vela. So naturally, it engulfs us right here, right now. In triangulation. This is again a very important mudra. Actually, we do it this way on the ground. We keep this on the ground, especially after doing vajrasana. We bend our head and put this hand on the ground. That is prema muppirikonu vela. Next line. Namamu talachevaru. Nama is name, which not only asymptotically resonates with form in Sanskrit, because name and form are always a duality. Anything which has a name has a form, and anything which has a form will have a name. But there are sounds which have no form as well. Formless sounds. The bija mantras, bijaksharas. Rama is a taraka mantra, just like Om. You can feel the prana, all the five mahāprāṇas enhanced while you chant this, especially you're doing it multiple times with proper breathing techniques, keeping your spine erect and with an appropriate mudra to go with it, usually the jñānamudrā or the chin-mudra. So that is Namamu talachevaru, name which not only asymptotically resonates with form in Sanskrit derivatives such as our Muddu Telugu here, but as a sound is also the very seed source of the form. The third thing that we talk about is bhakti. Rama Bhaktudaina, tyāgarājā says. Now, with sheer pleasure we do everything that we do. Otherwise, don't do it at all. Inaction is better. Though Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita does not allow akarmane. Karmanyevādhikārastu mā phaleshu kadāchana mā karma phalayetur bhūtva. Sangostu akarmane, he says. But I would say, with sheer pleasure, you have to do whatever you do. You have to love what you do. Otherwise, just don't do it. You'll always find something else to do which you love. Better do that. That's your dharma. As it is said, it's better to do one's own dharma rather than somebody else's dharma, somebody else's duty, right? So you better love what you're doing. Otherwise, do what you love. With sheer pleasure. Then, buoyantly blissful ecstasy. That's how you should do your work. Not just pleasure towards your work, but buoyantly blissful ecstasy. That's how I taught the Georgia Tech students. A lot of joy, bliss and ecstasy overflowing. It doesn't need to be something from the scriptures or something of a spiritual sadhana in the historical or mythical or traditional context. It can be whatever you're doing. Even going to the toilet or taking a bath or sleeping or eating or watching TV. Anything and everything that you do, taking a walk, etc. Do it buoyantly with blissful ecstasy. You feel so light and you feel like doing much, much more than what you're prescribed to do. Rama Bhaktudaina. You see, that's three we have finished. Prema muppirikonu vela, Namamu talachevaru, and Rama Bhaktudaina. Okay, so what is the fourth? It is tyāgarājā nutuni. Tyaga or offering in the spirit of Tera tujhko arpan, kya lage mera. உனதுதான்ப்பா உனக்கு கொடுக்குறேன். எனது என்ன இருக்குது இங்க கொடுக்கறதுக்கு? All that I'm giving is yours. That's what the BMI tells ourselves. Body, mind, and intellect tell ourselves and its concert, the energy, Shiva Shakti. They tell BMI tells ourselves and its energy. What we are giving to you is yours. It's just a drama. We don't even exist. We have just been projected out of you, and we are just acting as if we are trustees of what belongs to you, and we are giving it back. Tyaga, offering in the spirit of Tera Tujhko Arpan, Kya Lage Mera. Lovely song, actually. I'm not singing it in a tune, not to spoil it. I'm just telling you the lyrics of it, the first line. Name, recognition of that factual truth and truthful fact that nothing ever belongs to this BMI. Yet, it is a privilege. It is its privilege, the BMI toolkit's privilege to give to ourselves and its energy. That's what we call tyāgarājā, the fourth one. 1, 2, 3, 4 over. Fifth one, dāsa. What does Tyāgarājā say? Nija-dāsulaina vārendaro mahānubhāvulu. Nija-dāsa, real dāsa, servitude of who else but the fleeting BMI toolkit, none other than our eternal self and its energy. Even the energy serves ourself. Shakti serves Shiva. Many feminists might think of this as Lakshmi massaging Vishnu's feet, raise shackles, Parvati serving Shiva. But these are all esoteric metaphors, figuratively and symbolically expressing how the energy, life energy, prana, has to serve ourselves. This is the pranamaya kosha. This is the anandamaya kosha. The anandamaya kosha is subtler than the pranamaya kosha. And anything which is subtler needs to be served by that which is grosser. That's the fact. BMI, B has to serve M, M has to serve I has to serve E, the energy, E has to serve O, ourself. BMIEO. That is the hierarchy in terms of the service. And of course, the yogas associated with each of them: karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, raja yoga, and sankhya yoga. Integration, eventually. So that finishes the 5. Come on, VasanthiMā. Musically engross us and graciously endow us with these 5 amazing attributes as our primary takeaways from your 7-month-long sadhana, nada sadhana, bestowed with blessings by who else but éndarō mahānubhāvulu. As who else but ourselves. The floor, the microphone, and our ever so kindly forgiving. If they can forgive my singing, obviously they can forgive yours as well, or any mistakes that you make in the pronunciation, especially, or the raga or the tala. Because what's important is the bhava. Most important. It's not only a kindly forgiving audience, but also appreciative audience as well. And they're all yours, the floor, mic, and the audience.
Namaste. Premamu pirikonna vela namamu talachevaru premamu pirikonna vela namamu talachevaru ராமபக்துடைன தியாகராஜனு துனி ராமபக்துடைன தியாகராஜனு துனி நிஜதாசுலைனவா ராமபக்துடைன தியாகராஜனு துனி நிஜதாசுலைனவா éndarō mahānubhāvulu అందరికీ వందనము éndarō mahānubhāvulu అందరికీ వందనములు éndarō mahānubhāvulu
VasanthiMā. Now let's straight away jump into advaitik insights because I gave a very long preamble and usual these days. There were days in the beginning of your channel when I used to give even 6-hour discourses, but I cut them all down to about 20 minutes on an average for most of the recent episodes. But this one will be my last goodbye episode because of an ophthalmological issue. I'm almost blind in my right eye, and so I'm reducing my screen time. So this will be the last episode before VasanthiMā takes over, just pure singing. I'll be putting that up on her channel without any advaitik insights. So pardon us as I need to take care of my other eye as well. Save it because my profession primarily is on screen time. That's pretty much my office, my mobile and my computer, my laptop. To give quality time to my students, I have to take off some quality time from you all. Nonetheless, you're in my heart and I'm in yours. So goodbye, friends. But before that, advaitik insights for what VasanthiMā just sang for us. One of the mudrās. Guess which one? If not, rewind and watch this video again. Sneezing and coughing are the same mudrā. Now to the advaitik insights. Innumerable, éndarō, quantumly fulfilled, mahānubhāvulu, perceptibly experiential seers, perceptibly not through these two eyes, but through the intuitive eyes, third eye. Perceptibly experiential seers, those who are experiencing it as well. Mahānubhāvulu, with love, prema. Remember? So with love or prema being their very inherent internal core nature, let that love engulf, and triangulate themselves, by which I don't mean ourselves, but their BMIs. Kono, the triangle, kona, we say, not kena. Spatio-temporally, vela, leading to the primordially broad spectrum moral vibes, seeded with or without meaning, as the very source of the entire universe, created or uncreated, manifest or unmanifest, named or unnamed, namu, chanted incessantly, alache, by who else but their BMI toolkits, éndarō mahānubhāvulu's bodies, minds and intellects. They were chanting incessantly, without a stop, akanda japa, like what happens in the Vishwanatha Mandir of the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. Shivanandanagar, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. It's been going on for so many decades, probably close to becoming a century, unstopped, day and night. Of course, people take turns, but it's a akanda japa, chanted incessantly. Alache, by who else but their BMI toolkits, while especially in pleasant, duty-conscious Rama devotion, dedication. Duty-conscious devotion and dedication. But Rama Bhakta. Again, to who else but ourselves? Because the Adhyatma Ramayana, Rama is ourself, Sita is our mind, and Hanuman is the prana. Pancha-prāṇā we talked about today. The mahā-prāṇā takes on various forms as Hanuman, Bhima, Prahlada, Madhvacharya, Raghavendra. Again, to who else but ourselves, and to any of its tasks at hand in any situation whatsoever. Udaina, rendering such a true sadhak's BMI worthy of its sacrificial tyaga, royalties, raja, applause, literally unborn or beginningless. And hence, truly, nija. Many people just translate nija as true. But look at the beauty of Sanskrit. Nija, that which is not born, that is truth. Nijam, in Tamil also we say nijam, without even understanding what it is. Ni janma. Janmame edukada onnudha nijamaga mudiyum. Ellame poida. Hence, truly, nija, committed, dasu, service provider, liner, inspired by its illustrious predecessor and peers, temporarily advanced on the path, for it is our nameless self alone which has appeared over the ages, cloaked in and as numerous éndarō, fully satisfied beings, mahānubhāvulu, temporarily occupying such well-disciplined and maintained bodies, minds and intellects. The core interiority of every one of such phenomenal BMI toolkits, andariki, deserves our humble selves appreciative gratitude, vandanamulu, for the recreative or rather recreative entertainment, that is Leela. For that core of everyone is none other than our own singular self and ourself alone. I'll be back as soon as possible with episode number 125, intended to be an exclusive curation of VasanthiMā's 11th part offering or Ekadashopachara Puja. You'll have heard of Shodashopachara Puja. This is our Ekadashopachara Puja to éndarō mahānubhāvulu, of course. Pujas are done not as prayers but as invocations. Pratishta, and then we take back. And they also do a lot of these anganyasas, taking back, putting it out, etc. And also they were during the Naivedyam, I told you we do all this. With this, I bid goodbye to you all and not be appearing in front of you for long until there's some improvement in my eyesight. Namaskar.